On my 30th birthday, my parents handed me a trophy engraved with "Most Useless Daughter." My mother sneered, "You've always been our biggest failure." I forced a laugh, cooked their favorite dinner, covered their mortgage, and then walked out. 3 months later, my sister came pleading. "Mom and Dad are on the brink of losing the house. Please help. Thank you for being here. I hope you're enjoying your day wherever you are. I'd love for you to drop a comment with where you're tuning in from and what time it is there. Let's dive into this story together." The scent in the house on Maple Drive was always the same: my mother's potpourri. It clung to the air, a nauseating mix of cinnamon and dried roses, desperately trying to cover up something far darker, something that always felt stale and suffocating. It was my 30th birthday, and I, Amelia, found myself standing in that very kitchen, the familiar suffocating scent hanging in the air as I carefully basted the homemade lasagna. My mother, Eleanor, lived for appearances. Everything had to be perfect. The manicured lawn, the spotless living room, the flawless social media posts that painted our family as nothing short of perfect. For years, I had been the unspoken stain on that flawless facade, constantly ignored and overshadowed. My sister, Lily, had been their golden child, effortlessly slipping into their idea of success. Meanwhile, I remained the quiet one, the one who worked too hard and was never seen. My childhood wasn't filled with scraped knees or innocent adventures. It was defined by being invisible. From the moment my younger sister Lily entered the picture, the focus shifted. Lily was naturally charismatic, effortlessly charming, and a star athlete. I, on the other hand, was the quiet, unnoticed one, constantly absorbed in books, tinkering with electronics. My mother's signature sigh and eye roll greeted me every time I mentioned my coding projects or my chess club achievements. My father, Robert, a man of few words, saved his smiles and proud handshakes for Lily. As for me, it was always the distant, "That's nice, daughter," with a half-hearted pat on the shoulder. It felt like I was always living in the shadows. Every effort, every achievement of mine seemed to shrink compared to Lily's effortless brilliance. I worked multiple jobs throughout high school, saving every penny to pay for my own college. Lily, on the other hand, seemed to glide through tuition, her lavish expenses mysteriously taken care of, never a worry. I chose a stable, practical career, not because it was my passion, but because it offered security. I convinced myself that it was my way of proving my worth, earning that elusive recognition that always seemed out of reach. Looking back, it didn't feel like a career choice. It felt like an obligation. And for years, that obligation meant quiet, unseen sacrifices. I became the family's silent financial pillar. When the furnace broke down that winter, I was the one who quietly paid for the repairs, no questions asked, just fulfilling my duty. When their aging sedan needed a new transmission, my bank account seemed to dwindle without question. I paid for mounting utility bills, fixed leaky pipes, and even covered surprise medical expenses. My parents rarely asked outright. Instead, they would lament their financial struggles within earshot, their voices dripping with feigned helplessness, and I, driven by misplaced loyalty, always stepped in. It felt like I was pouring water into a bottomless pit. No matter how much I gave, their expectations grew, yet the more I did, the emptier I felt. Every check I wrote, every bill I paid, felt like another brick in the wall I was building, hoping that someday this wall would be high enough to earn their recognition and love. But instead, it only deepened the pit, making me feel more invisible with every sacrifice. As my 30th birthday neared, a flicker of hope sparked within me. 30. A milestone. Surely, at this age, something would change. Maybe, just maybe, they would finally notice me, really see me, and understand the sacrifices I made. I splurged, buying my father a luxurious watch he'd admired, and for my mother, a designer handbag she'd been hinting at for months. I spent hours in the kitchen, meticulously preparing their favorite lasagna from scratch, the aroma of slow-cooked tomatoes and basil filling the air, hoping it would finally show them how much I cared. It was the scent of effort, longing, and a desperate plea for connection, hoping they'd finally notice. The guests began arriving, polite smiles, aunts, uncles, cousins, shifting their attention quickly to Lily, who arrived fashionably late, radiating her usual effortless charm. I moved among them like a phantom at my own celebration, making sure everyone had drinks, refilling plates, playing the servant in the house I'd helped maintain. Lily, of course, took center stage, spinning tales of her latest successful ventures, while I stood quietly in the background. While I, the host, faded into the background, a silent, unacknowledged shadow. Then came the moment after dinner. As dessert was being cleared, my mother stood, tapping a fork sharply against her champagne glass. "Attention, everyone!" Her voice, usually soft, boomed now with a theatrical grandeur that filled the room. "We have a very special gift for our dear Amelia for her 30th birthday." A strange thrill, a fragile hope, fluttered in my chest. Was this finally it? The moment they would see me? My father, wearing a rare, almost smug grin, handed me a small velvet-covered box. My heart raced. Was it a watch? A necklace? Something real? Something meaningful? I opened the box. Inside, nestled on a silken cushion, was a small golden trophy. It gleamed under the harsh lights, cheap and gaudy, with bold black letters etched across the base. "Most useless daughter." The words cut through me like a blade. A collective gasp rippled through the room, followed by awkward, nervous laughter. My mother's eyes, usually so composed, gleamed with cold, triumphant satisfaction, her lips curling into a familiar, mocking smirk. "Amelia, dear," she purred, her voice dripping with saccharine condescension. "You've always been our biggest disappointment. We thought this would be a fitting tribute." Then came the sound that truly shattered me, Lily's laughter. Loud, unrestrained, almost gleeful. It echoed off the walls of the house I had poured my soul into, a cruel, mocking symphony. My breath caught, not in a sob, but in a sharp, searing clarity. It wasn't the kind of pain a broken heart feels. Number. It was something far colder, a brutal realization that everything I had ever hoped for was a lie. Every ounce of hope, every desperate plea for their love shattered into a million pieces inside my chest. It felt like stepping into a sterile, empty room after spending years in a dark, suffocating cave. The air, once thick with unspoken resentments and the sickly sweet scent of potpourri, suddenly felt cold, thin, and foreign. A strange, hollow laugh bubbled up from deep within me. It felt foreign, completely devoid of any humor, but it served its purpose. I managed a shaky, unconvincing chuckle. "Haha, very funny, Mom and Dad." The words tasted like ash. I placed the trophy carefully back in its box, my fingers trembling. A cold, steely resolve began to form inside me. This wasn't a joke. This was a statement, and I had just received their final, undeniable message. I excused myself, not to hide, but to act. I walked into the quiet solitude of the home office, my steps unnervingly calm. My phone felt heavy in my hand. I logged into my banking app with practiced precision. I found the line item for their mortgage payment, the one I'd been paying for the last 10 years, and initiated the transfer for the next month. A final, silent act of duty. A final, desperate attempt to tie up the loose ends before I fully disconnected. My finger hovered over the confirm button. A strange cocktail of dread and exhilaration washed over me. This was it, the last thread. I tapped it. The payment went through. Done. A sharp, almost painful release of tension rippled through me. I walked back into the dining room, a ghost among the laughing faces. "Well, dinner's ready. Enjoy," I said, my voice unnervingly calm, stripped of warmth. The once welcoming aroma of my carefully prepared lasagna, which had filled the house with hope just hours ago, now carried only bitterness and regret. I grabbed my coat, forcing a thin, strange smile. and walked out the front door, leaving behind the mockery, the laughter, and the oppressive scent of expectation. I didn't look back. I just walked away. The cool night air hit my face, a sharp contrast to the burning anger in my chest. It was the last time I walked out of that house, free from their grasp. The silence in my car was deafening, yet it hummed with a song of liberation. I drove aimlessly, not caring where, just away. When I pulled over, parked on a quiet side street, I began to purge, blocked their numbers, deleted family group chats, unfollowed them all on social media, severed every digital tie that kept me tethered. It was radical, painful, but necessary amputation. Each click of the block button was like severing the emotional barbed wire that had strangled my lungs for 30 years. A deep, unsettling peace settled in me, but it was mixed with an aching sadness for the family I had always hoped for, the family I would never have. The house on Maple Drive, once a symbol of belonging, now felt like a mausoleum of shattered dreams. The first week was eerily calm. My phone, once a buzzing tether to their endless demands, was hauntingly silent. It was a silence I'd never known, empty, devoid of their criticisms, their manipulations, and their insatiable needs. Of course, they called. First Lily, then my mother, then Lily again. Their messages started as confusion and annoyance. "Are you throwing a tantrum, Amelia? Stop being so dramatic." But they quickly turned into veiled threats. "You'll be back. You always are." They truly thought I was a child, incapable of independent thought or action. I let their calls ring, their voicemails pile up, each one a testament to how little they understood me. They seemed to expect me to return, begging for forgiveness, as if I was their dutiful puppet. But the silence in my life wasn't just a lack of their voices. It was an invitation to listen to my own. Finally, I started therapy, a decision I'd delayed for years, always feeling too busy, too burdened to even think about it. The therapist's office smelled of fresh linen, the air filled with quiet validation, a stark contrast to the suffocating scent of expectation I'd been raised in. It was there, in that calm sanctuary, that I slowly began to unravel years of gaslighting and emotional manipulation. I learned the terms: codependency, narcissistic tendencies, emotional black hole. It was like someone handed me a map to the labyrinth I'd been lost in my whole life. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't just too sensitive. What I felt, what I experienced, was undeniably real. During this time, I began cautiously reconnecting with old friends who had always seen past the mask my family wore. Sarah, my empathetic lawyer friend from college, became my lifeline. She listened to my story with wide, knowing eyes, her legal mind quickly processing the patterns of manipulation. "Amelia," she would say gently, "you were being used, plain and simple." Her validation was like a lifeline to my soul, making me feel less invisible, less alone. She was the first person to ask, "What do you want?" Not what my family wanted for me, but what I truly wanted. I also rediscovered hobbies I'd abandoned years ago. I started coding personal projects, not for work, but for the sheer joy of it. I explored hiking trails in the vast state parks of California. The cool, fresh air filled my lungs. The scent of pine and damp earth grounded me. The mountains whispered of a freedom I never knew existed. A raw, unburdened spirit. I felt lighter, healthier, both emotionally and physically. The constant knot in my stomach, a familiar companion for years, began to unravel. Meanwhile, back on Maple Drive, the cracks in their perfect facade began to show. Lily's calls became more frequent, laced with a new panicked desperation. The bank started calling me. "Mom and Dad keep asking about the mortgage. What's going on?" Lily's voice, usually smooth and confident, now sounded thin, frayed at the edges. She couldn't understand that the steady stream of money, the invisible hand that had kept their finances afloat, had finally dried up. Lily's go-to move was always to deflect blame, to keep up her perfect image. She started posting cryptic messages on social media, vague laments about ungrateful family members, painting me as the villain, hoping I'd come back to my role as their silent benefactor. It was her signature move, shifting blame, playing the victim, while secretly panicking. But their public mask was cracking, unable to hold up much longer. The bank's pressure intensified. Foreclosure warnings started showing up on the doorstep. Stark white envelopes against the backdrop of their perfectly manicured lawn. My parents, especially my mother, began showing visible signs of stress. Her carefully curated social media posts became fewer, more strained, lacking their usual forced cheerfulness. I saw glimpses of it through old mutual friends' feeds. Her eyes looked haunted, her smile stiff and brittle. Lily, utterly out of her depth, tried to fix things herself. She applied for several loans, boasting about her business acumen, but was rejected again and again. Her success was built on a shaky foundation of perception, not real capital. She tried to guilt-trip me through other relatives, sending messages like, "Mom and Dad are really worried about you. They miss you. Don't you care about them?" It was all manipulation, designed to draw me back in. Then came the unexpected phone call. It was from Aunt Carol, my mother's younger sister. Carol had always been the family black sheep, living her life on her own terms, fiercely independent. My mother had effectively estranged Aunt Carol years ago, citing her reckless choices and bad influence. But I remembered Carol as the only one who ever truly listened to me, the only one who could see the quiet struggles I'd been hiding behind the family's perfect facade. Her voice, when it came through, was raspy with concern. "Amelia, is that really you?" We talked for hours. I spilled everything, the trophy, the years of feeling invisible, the weight of the financial burden. Aunt Carol listened patiently, her quiet hum of understanding offering a rare comfort. Then she took a deep breath. "Amelia," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper, "there's something you need to know. Something your parents have kept buried for years." She revealed a family secret that sent a chill down my spine, yet at the same time, it made everything from my childhood fall into place, as if pieces of a broken puzzle had finally connected. My parents had inherited a significant sum from Carol's side of the family years ago, a trust fund set up for her mother, my grandmother. It wasn't a small amount. It was enough to have secured their retirement, maybe even paid off their mortgage. But instead of investing it wisely, instead of building a secure future, they systematically squandered it, not on necessities or education, but on maintaining a false image of wealth and privilege for Lily. Aunt Carol told me how my mother had always been obsessed with Lily's potential, pouring money into her failed business ventures, hiring expensive private school tutors she hardly ever used, and paying for lavish vacations, all to project an image of success and status to their friends. Carol pulled out old, faded letters from her mother, my grandmother, and bank statements she had carefully copied over the years, fearing this very outcome. They were undeniable, records of consistent, large withdrawals from a specific account, clearly marked for Lily's business investments or her European trips. "It wasn't just disappointment," Aunt Carol said, her voice raw with years of suppressed frustration. "It was resentment. They resented you because you were independent, just like me," Aunt Carol continued. "You questioned things. You couldn't be controlled. Lily was their investment in their image, their golden child, the one who would shine brightly enough to mask their financial recklessness. You, Amelia, were just the reliable little ATM, the one who cleaned up their messes," she said bitterly. "They didn't want you to succeed on your own terms. That would have made you even harder to control." The revelation hit me like a physical blow, yet, strangely, it was also liberating. The fragmented pieces of my childhood suddenly clicked into place, revealing a design more intricate and cruel than I'd ever imagined. It wasn't just about me being useless. It was about them being users. All those years, Their constant complaints about being poor, their subtle hints for money, their blatant favoritism toward Lily. It wasn't hardship. It was a calculated manipulation that had been going on for decades. My chest tightened, not from pain, but from a cold, unrelenting fury. My vision, once clouded by a desperate need for their approval, was now crystal clear. The silence on my phone, once just an absence, had become a shield. I wasn't just breaking free. I was preparing for a fight. 3 months had passed since my 30th birthday. 3 months of deep, unsettling silence from my end. Then came the first direct message. It wasn't a call, yet. It was a breathless, panicked voicemail from Lily. Her voice, usually smooth and confident, now sounded thin, frayed at the edges. Amelia, it's Lily. Listen. Mom and Dad are in serious trouble. Like really serious. The bank just served them with final foreclosure papers. They're about to lose the house, Amelia. The house, they're losing it. This is your fault. Her voice cracked. A pathetic mixture of accusation and raw fear. It was her usual blend of entitlement and blame, but now amplified by real panic. She was clearly out of her depth. I listened to it twice before deleting it. The sound of her panic, once enough to twist a knot of guilt in my stomach, now felt hollow, empty. The old Amelia would have jumped at the chance, heart racing, ready to fix everything, but this new Amelia, the one who had finally started seeing clearly, felt only a cool, unshakable resolve. I called Sarah, my lawyer friend. It's time, I told her. She'd been carefully preparing for this, gathering her thoughts on the legal implications of the financial documents Aunt Carol had given me. Then my parents called. They were completely out of their depth. My mother's voice, usually so controlled, cracked into hysteria. Amelia, how could you do this to your own mother? We're losing everything. This is all because you abandoned us. Her words dripped with venom, the same manipulative tactics she always used. But beneath it, I could hear the raw fear, their carefully built world, sustained by my silent support and Lily's imagined success, was crumbling. I didn't abandon you, Mom, I said, my voice calm, betraying no sign of the tremor in my hand. I simply stopped enabling you. Enabling? What nonsense are you talking about? She shrieked. We're family. Families help each other. And what about when I needed help, I countered, my voice hardening. When I needed acknowledgement, when I needed the truth. There was stunned silence on her end. Then she hung up. My father followed with a more subdued but equally manipulative call, complaining about their health, how the stress was going to kill them. He played the long-suffering patriarch, but I could hear the fear in his voice. Good. I called them back a few days later. I'm willing to talk, I said calmly, but on my terms. I demand a public apology, a formal acknowledgement of my contributions, and full transparency on all family finances. And Lily needs to be there. Their resistance was immediate. A public apology? Don't be ridiculous, my mother snapped. We're your parents. You apologize to us. But I held firm. This isn't a negotiation, I said firmly. This is the truth. My terms, or you lose the house. The silence on the other end was heavy, filled with their internal conflict. Eventually my father, in a defeated voice, agreed. They were desperate. Meanwhile, Sarah and I launched a quiet but strategic campaign on social media. I began posting vague quotes about how the truth always finds a way to surface and how unseen sacrifices are made, hoping they'd resonate with a wider audience. I shared articles about financial abuse in families without pointing fingers. I let the algorithms and my friends' curiosity do the rest. My parents and Lily, both obsessed with appearances, started feeling the pressure. Friends of friends, distant relatives, and even their own acquaintances began probing, asking questions on their social media posts. Sensing the shift, their social mask began to crack, revealing the raw anxiety and confusion hiding beneath. They were no longer the flawless American family. A family meeting was scheduled for a Saturday afternoon in a sterile, impersonal community center room. a place devoid of nostalgic warmth, perfect for what was about to unfold. I arrived with Aunt Carol and Sarah. The air was thick with tension, like a suffocating blanket, absorbing every sound. My parents sat across from me, their faces grim, radiating anger and fear. Lily sat between them, her usual confident swagger replaced by nervous fidgeting. Lily couldn't even meet my gaze, so my mother spoke first, her voice tight with sarcasm. "You wanted to talk," she spat, venom dripping from her words. "I want the truth," I corrected, my voice steady. "And an apology." "An apology?" My father scoffed. "For what? For trying to raise you properly? For giving you everything?" "Gave me everything," I echoed. A bitter laugh escaped from my lips. "You gave Lily everything. I paid for it." And then it began. They launched into their usual tirade of gaslighting and blame, painting me as the cold, heartless daughter who had abandoned them when they needed me most. "You always wanted to tear this family apart, didn't you, Amelia?" My mother sneered, her eyes glittering with venom. "You've always been so ungrateful, so cold." Lily nodded vigorously, chiming in with her usual, "Yeah, Amelia, what's wrong with you? Don't you care?" I let them speak, calmly listening. I could feel Sarah's hand gently squeezing my arm under the table, a silent support. I watched their faces, but I didn't see parents. I saw actors delivering an increasingly desperate, well-rehearsed performance. When they finally paused, exhausted by their own theatrics, I pulled out my phone. The room fell silent, save for the hum of the overhead lights. "Funny," I said, my voice cutting through the tension. "I have a different version of the story." I tapped the screen, and the small device filled the sterile room with Lily's voice, clear and unmistakably hers. It was a series of phone calls and texts I had recovered from an old hard drive. Sarah had helped me with the forensic analysis. The first recording was Lily boasting to a friend. "Yeah, Amelia just sent more money for the mortgage. She's such a sucker. Thinks she's helping, but Mom and Dad always back me. Why should she get credit? She's useless anyway. Just cover our asses." Then another clip from a different call, discussing my mortgage payments. "Nah, don't worry about the house. Amelia's sending her allowance. We just borrow from it for my business expenses. They're fine with it. They want to keep her dependent." The last part was a series of texts Sarah projected onto a small screen. Detailed bank transfers from my account to theirs, followed by near-immediate withdrawals for things like Lily's European visa and her new card down payment. "This wasn't just a betrayal," I said, my voice cold and devoid of emotion. "It was a calculated scheme. For years you siphoned off my hard-earned money to fund Lily's lavish lifestyle and maintain this false image of success. While I was made to believe you were struggling, calling me useless and a disappointment, the silence in the room now felt heavier than any accusation." Lily's face, usually so composed and confident, crumpled into a mask of pure terror and disbelief. Her signature smirk disappeared, replaced by a look of sheer horror. My parents, initially stunned, mouths agape, turned their fury on Lily. "What is this, Lily?" my mother shrieked, her voice now filled with hysteria. "What did you do?" The carefully constructed image of the golden child shattered in that instant. It was then that Aunt Carol stepped forward, placing a stack of faded letters and bank statements on the table. "And this," she said, her voice clear and resonant, "is just the beginning. This family has been built on lies and manipulation for too long. I have proof of the inheritance," Aunt Carol continued. "Proof that your parents had more than enough money to be financially secure, but chose to squander it, often on Lily's whims, while making Amelia pay. They resented Amelia's independence, her honesty, her refusal to be controlled. They needed to make her feel inadequate so she would always feel obligated to them. The relatives present, some of whom had been invited by my parents to witness my supposed repentance, gasped. Their murmurs grew louder, shifting from sympathy for my parents to open disgust. The perfect family image was torn to shreds, not by my hand, but by their own. Their meticulously crafted facade shattered on the sterile floor of the community center, revealing the raw, ugly truth beneath. The triumph I felt wasn't about revenge, it was the undeniable clarity of finally seeing things for what they were. I wasn't just free, I was finally seen. The aftermath was swift, brutal, and entirely of their own making. The bank moved forward with the foreclosure. My parents, their social mask completely stripped away, found themselves staring down the harsh reality they had so long avoided. The carefully cultivated image they had in the community crumbled faster than their finances. Neighbors, once admiring their resilience and close-knit family, now looked at them with a mix of pity and contempt. Whispers followed them in the grocery store, silent judgments echoing in their once friendly church. The social media campaign, fueled by the aftermath of the family meeting, made sure that their story, or at least my truth, spread like wildfire. The perfect family narrative wasn't just shattered, it was publicly dismantled. Lily's life, built on lies and my unknowing support, came crashing down. Her so-called successful business ventures, always vague and lacking substance, evaporated. Her network of superficial friends, attracted to her perceived wealth and charm, vanished as soon as the truth of her financial recklessness and manipulative nature was exposed. Lily lost her job, her reputation in tatters. The golden child was revealed for what she truly was, a gilded cage, her own prison. She was utterly lost, pathetically so, without a source of external validation, or more importantly, without external funding. My decision was clear, unburdened by guilt. I didn't swoop in to save them, financially or emotionally. I met with them one last time, Sarah by my side. My voice was calm and firm, devoid of the emotional wreckage they expected. My financial support ends today, I stated, looking each of them in the eye. You created this situation. You made your choices. I offered them resources, financial literacy courses, therapy. My help is conditional, I explained, on genuine change, on acknowledging the truth, and on taking responsibility for your actions. But deep down, I knew they were unlikely to take it. They were too entrenched in their own delusions. I realized saving them wasn't about money. It was about them facing their own truth, and that was a journey I couldn't walk for them. I set clear, unshakable boundaries, walls of steel, where once there had been open gates to my resources and my spirit. The liberation was profound. It wasn't the triumphant roar of victory. It was a quiet, deep breath. After years of suffocating under their demands, I broke the lease on my old apartment, which felt tainted by their shadow. I found a new place, a small, sun-drenched condo on the outskirts of the city. It was truly mine. It smelled of fresh paint and new beginnings, not old regrets and burdens. It was a symbolic act, a real representation of my new life. My relationships with Aunt Carol and Sarah blossomed. They became my chosen family, offering genuine love, respect, and unconditional support. Aunt Carol, with her vibrant spirit and sharp wit, taught me what true independence really meant. Sarah, with her unwavering belief in justice, showed me the power of standing strong in the face of adversity. We shared meals, laughter, and stories, building connections rooted in honesty and shared values, not blood. I learned that family wasn't a biological contract. It was a sacred circle of trust, built on empathy and mutual respect. This was my ultimate liberation. I dove into my passions. My coding projects, once late-night distractions, became a fulfilling pursuit. I explored new hobbies, painting, learning the guitar. I found true fulfillment in my work, in the connections I made, all powered by a new sense of self-worth, not a need for external validation. The constant knot in my stomach, my old companion for decades, finally unraveled. Of course, healing isn't linear. There were moments of quiet sadness, a grief for the family I wished I had, the childhood I never got to experience. Sometimes, late at night, a phantom limb of obligation would twinge, the faint echo of old wounds. The memory of the trophy still stung, but the suffocating pain was gone, replaced by a quiet, unwavering strength. I would look at the small, tarnished golden trophy I still kept, a sharp reminder of where I had been. It wasn't a symbol of anger anymore. It was a symbol of my rebirth. I often thought about what would have happened if I hadn't left, if I had stayed, if I had continued playing the part of the unnoticed, perfect daughter. I would have been swallowed whole, my spirit crushed. It was the hardest choice I've ever made, but it was the only one that led to my freedom. And that, in itself, is the greatest victory I could ever ask for. My story isn't unique. How many of us carry the heavy, unspoken weight of expectations that aren't ours to bear? How many of us pour ourselves into relationships that drain us, leaving us feeling empty, unnoticed? When do you finally say, enough is enough? When do you take back your own story? My life isn't perfect, not by a long shot, but it's finally mine. I'm no longer the most useless daughter. I am Amelia, and I am finally free. Have you ever felt like the most invisible person in your family, only to realize you were the backbone all along? Share your experiences below. Let's redefine what family truly means.